Prominent Democrats talking about the accuser of Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Join us right now. We're happy to have Sarah Sanders, the press secretary to the President of the United States. Good to you're in town for the United Nations.
I know. It's nice to see you guys in real life.
It's great to have you. Yesterday,
no
Kellyanne
street sweeper behind us either, which is nice.
It's so quiet in here.
No one mowing the lawn.
Kellyanne Conway yesterday said regarding these accusers and the campaign against Judge Kavanaugh, she described it as a vast left-wing conspiracy. Do you think there is one?
I think the process that the Democrats have played has been absolutely appalling and disgusting. Even in the accuser's letter yesterday to Senator Grassley, she said she wanted to do this privately, and she reached out for that purpose. But because the Democrats wanted to play 11th-hour political games, they waited until the last minute. They've made this a huge public circus and, frankly, hurt two different families' lives that they'll never be able to be the same because of the way that they have operated this process. And I think it's disgusting that they've exploited these individuals and their families for their own political purposes.
What was your take on Martha's interview last night, and what went into the decision to do that interview? Because this whole process has been unique. That was a very tough decision, I imagine, from communications.
I think we've been very clear from the beginning. Judge Kavanaugh has wanted to come out and tell his story.
He's been telling you that?
As far as, I mean, he said it in every letter, every exchange, every statement, that he is willing and ready to come and answer questions, hard questions, uncomfortable questions, because he's been very consistent from day one and unequivocal in his denial that anything ever took place. And so I find it to be a good platform that he was able to come out and to share his side of the story, because as far as I can tell and as far as I remember in America, you're still innocent until proven guilty. But the Democrats have been calling him guilty from day one before they ever even talked to him.
Well, we do.
They sat through hours of hearing, never brought it up, never talked to him in private meetings, and waited until the last minute to start throwing out some outrageous allegations that have no corroboration, which is, I find, really terrible.
Yeah, a lot of people find the timing curious. We do want our viewers to be able to hear what Judge Kavanaugh had to say, denying the accusations, talking to Martha McCallum on the story.
In America, we have fairness. We hear from both sides. A fair process, at a minimum, at a bare minimum, requires hearing from both sides before rushing to judgment. People might have had too many beers on occasion, and people generally in high school, I think all of us have probably done things we look back on in high school and regret or cringe a bit, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an allegation of sexual assault. I've never sexually assaulted anyone. I've always treated women with dignity and respect. Listen to the people who've known me best through my whole life, the women who've known me since high school, the 65 who overnight signed a letter from high school saying I always treated them with dignity and respect.
Washington Post says that the president called Mr. Kavanaugh yesterday to wish him good luck on that. Washington Post also says that the president has been frustrated with the pace at which this has been progressing in the Senate on the Republican side. And he says that Chuck Grassley and Mitch McConnell, according to the Washington Post, have been too accommodating, said the Republicans have been too easily manipulated by the Democrats, and he's sick of Ford's attorneys getting their way and does not believe that the accusations are credible.
Well, you know, I like to not use the Washington Post as my source, but look, the president wants this process to come to a vote because that's what's supposed to happen. In every single one of these instances where someone is nominated, they go before, they have a hearing, and then the senators vote on it. That's what's supposed to happen, and that's what the president expects to happen. He's nominated somebody. Senators had ample time to question him. He's been willing to come back and answer these new allegations that have been brought forward. And he wants a chance to be able to do that so that the Senate can make a decision. I do think it's unfair to continue to drag the process out and continue to put good people through the ringer for the sake of political games that the Democrats want to play.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders in the middle of all of this. She joined us now here on GMA. Thank you for coming in. The president had that tweet last night railing against false accusations allegations against Mr. Kavanaugh. Why doesn't he think that Ms. Ramirez and Dr. Ford are lying?
Certainly, the president has said a number of times that these individuals should be heard.
And he called their accusations false already before they're heard.
Brett Kavanaugh has been unequivocal in his denial of this. He knows Brett Kavanaugh. He's spent a great deal of time with him, and he trusts him. And Brett Kavanaugh has asked for his voice to be heard in this process, too. As last I can remember, we're still a country where you're innocent until proven guilty, except when you're a conservative Republican. It is absolutely shameful what the Democrats have done and the way that they've turned this into a complete political process.
Except
multiple lives have been ruined. Both families have been dragged through the mud when they didn't have to be, because Dianne Feinstein could have done this in a much more structured process, and instead waited until the 11th hour and is playing political games with people's lives. And I find that to be disgraceful and disgusting. And she certainly needs to shoulder a lot of the blame for what's going on right now.
You have both Ms. Ramirez and Dr. Ford saying there should be an FBI investigation. If they thought they weren't telling the truth, they wouldn't be inviting an FBI investigation. Why is it wrong to have an FBI investigation for something as important as a Supreme Court nominee?
Because we have a process in place. They have a Senate process, and we think it should be done through that. No one is trying to hide from this. In fact, Brett Kavanaugh's been leaning in. He's been begging to come and tell his story and be able to do that, whether it's publicly or privately. He's asked for that opportunity, and he's been perfectly open for others to have the opportunity to share their side as well. But let's be clear, from the very beginning, he has been strong and unequivocal in his denial that anything like this happened. He also has a lifetime of a record of empowering and respecting women. And you've seen hundreds of women that know him and know him well come out and say exactly that.
And some of them recant that as well, though. But from the president from the very beginning has been questioning the story of Dr. Ford, including that tweet last week saying that if she were telling the truth, she would have reported it to the authorities at the time. That drew a sharp response from Senator Susan Collins.
I was appalled by the president's tweet. I thought that the president's tweet was completely inappropriate and wrong.
What's your response?
Look, the president once again has said on a number of occasions that he thinks everybody's voices should be heard, and let's let this process play out. It's the Democrats who have been halting it from the beginning and not allowing this to go through the process because they want this to be a political game, and I think that the way that they have operated in this is absolutely appalling. If anything has been appalling, it's the way that they have gone after and used these people's stories and their lives and exploited them for political gain.
These women have come forward and agreed to go public.
Trying to do it in a private manner and could have done so had Senator Dianne Feinstein allowed that to happen, and she didn't.
Well, actually, they went public. She was respecting the confidentiality, but you've said that everybody's voices should be heard. So does the president want Ms. Ramirez to appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee as well?
Certainly, we would be open to that, and that process could take place on Thursday. Again, the president's been clear. Let them speak, but let's also let Brett Kavanaugh speak, and let's let him tell his side of the story before we allow allegations to determine his entire future.
It does seem, though, that the president has already reached a judgment about their stories, and there does seem to be a pattern here. When Roy Moore is accused, when Bill O'Reilly is accused, when Roger Ailes is accused, when Rob Porter is accused, and now when Brett Kavanaugh is accused, the president consistently, every single time, takes the side of the man.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. It's a lot of Democrats that like to ignore Keith Ellison and Cory Booker. They love to fight and champion women until they disagree with them.
Al Franken lost his job in the Senate.
And a number of other Democrats should have the same type of scrutiny. Look, the president is perfectly
But what's the answer to my
happy.
question? Every single time the president has taken the side of the man against women accusers.
That's not true. And in this case, the president knows Brett Kavanaugh. He's heard his story. There hasn't been a shred of evidence to corroborate the other individual stories. And there has been a lot of individuals that have come forward and talked about the Brett Kavanaugh that they know, and they're confident that these things didn't happen.
Final question. What does the president hope to achieve at the UN today?
I think that his speech this morning is going to be a great moment for the president. We've had a tremendous amount of success, particularly when it comes to the foreign policy front over the last year since he gave his last speech. If you'll remember, the rhetoric last year was extremely tough with North Korea. I think you'll see certainly a different tone, and a lot of progress has been made on that front, in large part due to the president's leadership.
Sarah Sanders, thanks very much.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.